Hello, everybody, and welcome to Nebraska Writers Guild Author Chat. Tonight we have James Buehler on our show with us. James comes to us from Lincoln, Nebraska. Welcome to the show, James.
Thanks for having me on.
Why don't you tell us about yourself?
All right. You already said I live in Lincoln. I work for the state of Nebraska. I'm a computer programmer. Married, 3 children, 17, 19, and 21 on the ages. So a couple of them are kind of out of school. One of them's kind of in college, taking a few classes, and the other's going to be a senior this year. So we'll see how that goes with him. So,
yes.
I've kind of always been a sports fan, kind of one of my favorite things. So that's kind of been a long, hard summer for that stuff too. So
yeah, no kidding. What's your favorite sport to watch?
It's kind of evolved. I think when I was really young, it was football. Then I got into baseball, and then kind of back to football, I think, right now. So
yeah,
a little bit of both, whichever. So
I haven't been paying much attention. I know they stopped all games for a while. Are they doing any games without audiences or anything like that?
Baseball started almost a week ago now, I think. Actually, I think it's been a week ago. They are playing in their stadiums with no fans.
Uh-huh.
I think I saw a picture that somebody had cardboard fans behind the batter. So there's probably some of that going on in there too. And basketball starts tonight, what they're doing. And then hockey's coming up. There a lot of them are actually starting up.
Wow.
And then women's basketball has been playing. They've been going for a week or so now too, I think, maybe a couple. Soccer started, so yeah, they're trying to get some of them going.
And are these colleges?
Those are all professional.
All professional.
I don't think colleges have started anything yet. Just some practicing probably. So
cool, awesome. All right, so how long have you been writing?
Technically, you could probably say 40 years. Because I started the first. I have a series. I started the first book when I was in high school. So that tells you how long ago I was in high school, right?
We won't do the math.
And it was mostly off. You say off and on, but
yes.
It was mostly off for a long time, and then I finally started. I need to do these things, so I started up again. Probably, I'd say maybe about 15 years ago with all these. So
great. And tell us about what you write.
I write, it's a series, The Swords of Baj. Baj is how it's pronounced, and actually, Baj is a conglomeration of the initials of my wife and children.
Oh.
So that's how I came up with that, and then it didn't, so I threw the little apostrophe in there just to make it look funnier or something, It
looks cool. Yeah.
A little cool. Yeah, that's better, right? Because I thought, if it just say BAJJ, that didn't look great, but so I threw the apostrophe in there.
Nice.
They're probably more fantasy than science fiction. I think science fiction, you kind of need to have science in there and know what you're talking about with science and look things up. And so with fantasy, you can just kind of this is how I want to do it. Just accept it.
Yeah. This is my magic system. This is the
right. So, So I think it's more in the fantasy category than science fiction type. But I like to throw in lasers and spaceships too. So,
oh, cool.
I don't know if that makes it science fiction then or not. But it's kind of a conglomeration of both.
Awesome.
It's about 5 swords. They're magical swords. Each sword gives whoever owns it, holds it, whatever, however you want to say that, the holder of it, the owner of it, a special power. And then they also can choose up to 3 more of their own. The first one they can't choose. It comes with a sword, and then they can choose a weapon or an ability or just something. It doesn't have to be a weapon necessarily. Just something that they want to choose. Like one of them's chosen healing, so that's not a weapon. So
yeah.
And like the power, the first sword lets the person know the truth. You can't lie. He'll know you're lying. The second one, I have that people leave an aura behind as they walk, walk or drive or whatever they're doing. There's an aura behind them, and this sword can see that aura for up to 3 days.
Oh,
So he could follow anybody up to 3 days, and he couldn't get away from him really.
cool.
The third sword's power is to know where all the other swords are at all times. Only not back in the past. They do know what they did in the past, but they know where the ones that are in their time. The fourth one, the holder can make kind of invisible shields and kind of indestructible as well. You can't penetrate them. So if they wanted to put a wall up between a crowd and maybe some of the fighting that's going on, the crowd would be safe behind that thing. Or so hopefully it's not too much like the Invisible Woman's power, It's like,
yeah.
So, and they can, make blocks, so you can actually, part of the what they would do is what could make blocks, and then you could like walk up them and get up higher or something if you needed to.
Cool.
And then the last one's power is to transport itself, the holder, and anything else it wants within the area, anywhere that it wants to. And it can transport planet-wise too. So
wow.
It's not just like within 3 blocks down the road or something like that. So
interesting.
So that's what each of the swords powers do. Plus, then you can have up to 3 others. So.
That's cool. We have a question from a Facebook user. They're wondering, what kind of books do you read?
What kind of books do I read? I kind of like the fantasy and science fiction type as well. Right. Those are what would be my preference. Like Lord of the Rings and things like that. So
classics. Do you read mostly classics, or do you have some favorite authors that are more modern?
Oh, I don't know. Probably it depends. The Harry Potter. I don't know. Is that modern anymore? I don't know. Sure. Maybe Harry Potter. Sure. Harry Potter too. I like those kind of things.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So just that kind of stuff in general.
Cool. So what inspired you to write these books?
What inspired me was when I was a teenager, and I always dreamed that I had this first sword. That I was the owner of the first sword, and and it's like, then I got to thinking, like, well, I could get hurt if I had the sword, so I'm going to make the owner of the sword invulnerable, and nothing could ever happen to him. So, so it's like, hey, that's better. And then, so it's just kind of my thoughts as a teenager, pretending you have the sword like that, and you can do anything. And it's like, I should write these down instead. Nice. So that's kind of how I decided to go about writing. I thought, I'll try to write them up and see what happens.
Yeah. So how long does it take you to write a book?
Far too long. It takes me too long. Got a regular job. Yeah. And just sometimes it's like, get at the end of the day, I should sit down and write, and I don't. So it's the first one obviously took me forever. Actually, no, I won't say that. Because I did have it, because I remember I was done by the time I hit college. With writing it, and I started the second one kind of in college actually too, and some of the characters, there's a gang in there. The characters in the gang were some people that I knew from college, so some of their nicknames, and so I had them give me names that would be their character. So I did, yeah. So, and then from college I took a long break.
Yeah.
And then I think the third one is done. That one may have taken me like about 5 years, just with sitting around on my duff.
Yeah.
And not doing what I should be doing, probably.
Life.
Yeah, life gets in the way of the things you want to do, right?
Work and all of that.
So,
yes.
Yep.
Charles is wondering, what's your average word count for your books?
The first one is fairly small, considering it's like 192 pages. The word count on I don't know if I have an average word count on them. I'd have to open up and look at Word and see what my word count is down there.
Yeah.
It's, well, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know for sure.
150 pages for the first one, or the second
Yeah,
word about that too.
I got the third one right here is 346 pages.
So they got a little longer.
Yeah, the second one's like probably a little over 200. Well, over 200. It's probably between the 200 and 300. So, so I don't know for sure what that translates into in word count, but I think right now in the fourth one, I think I'm at about 80,000 words.
So that's nice.
So, yeah, and that's maybe halfway done. I'm not totally sure.
That'll be a long one. So are your protagonists adults, or are they youth, teenagers?
They're kind of early 20s.
Okay.
I think one of them was 19 at the first book and just had his birthday, so just turned 20.
Okay.
So
kind of new adult.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So, is your world set like in modern day? Are there cars and planes and stuff?
I wanted to go a little bit further out, but not too far out, because I'm not bright enough to come up with all sorts of cool things. So I went about 2050.
Okay, so a little bit.
It's Well, when I started in high school is in 1980. It was the 80s, so
yeah.
So then it was almost like 100. It was like what, 70 years at that point or something. So and now we're a little closer to that time.
Yeah.
And I do have flying cars.
Cool.
So, but they weren't necessarily self-driving now, but we're kind of heading towards self-driving. So
yeah.
So I kind of missed. One of the characters does have a car as his ability. So and it's flying, and it can fly itself, and it can talk. So.
Oh, nice.
So. And
That's
and
cool.
most of the cars in the world just go maybe a foot or two above the ground, and that one can actually go wherever it wants to. So
nice. All right, we have another question. Do you do all your publishing with Amazon?
Yeah, I do. I used it was CreateSpace when I started, and then Amazon took over CreateSpace, and basically I think now it's just Amazon. I think CreateSpace is kind of technically gone now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is.
So I think it's just Amazon. So yes, I do. So, and I find it's pretty easy, really.
Yeah.
I find it fairly easy to use them, and just so I kind of recommend it if that's the way you want to go with it,
Yes.
So
are your books then in Kindle Select, where people can get it through Kindle Unlimited?
Yes, the second two for sure, because the first one I started it over on Smashwords too, and then got it on Barnes and Noble, and I'm like, Barnes and Noble wasn't too, it's like, then by the time I got around to the second one and to getting it out, I was like, I'll just stick with Amazon and put it on the Select. So technically, I guess I can't put the first one on there since it's still on Barnes and Noble.
Gotcha.
So I should someday I will probably just take it off the Barnes and Noble and then put it on Kindle Select, because that works.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it does. Most of mine are in Kindle Select too.
Yeah.
So what's your writing process like?
My writing process is, first I got to make myself get down there and do it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I don't really use like an outline and say this is how it's going to go, and it has to go this way, because you sometimes you get down there and you start writing something and you're like, I was not going to go that way, but I just did.
Yes.
So now I got to follow that a little bit. And then you write yourself into a corner, and then you're like, okay, now what do I do for a while? Then you walk away for a while and you think about it, and then sometimes you're just somewhere you're like, oh, that's where I'm going. And then you can come back and get to it. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the best way to do it in the world, but I don't like, I think having this, having an outline is good to kind of keep yourself, but giving yourself the freedom to, like, if you decide you wanted to, something else is coming your way that might be better for you, to make a change in the middle of it if you need to. So
Yes. I'm a pantser too. I've tried outlining, and like you, my characters don't want to stick to the outline. They just do their own thing.
They do sometimes, don't they?
Yeah.
So
what was your publishing journey like?
Well, the first one, I once submitted it somewhere. I don't even know what it was, like Delray or something. Probably, I don't even know.
Yeah.
I submitted it somewhere, and I don't know if they may have never opened it. I'm not even sure, but I did get it back eventually, and it didn't look like they had hardly touched it, which wouldn't surprise me, coming from a kid,
Right.
when you're pretty young. So that that kills your ambition too sometimes. So I waited. And I was still writing the second one, and it's like, oh, I'll keep writing it, and here and there I got around to it. Then I had a coworker who got himself a Kindle for Christmas one year. So, when Kindles were fairly new at that point in time, and he's like, man, you can put all sorts of you can get books all over the place on this thing. He said, and I think he showed me that the I don't know if it was CreateSpace at that time, or it just showed me that there's ways to actually publish it on your own.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, you know what? That's probably the only way I'll ever get these out here. So, kind of writing mostly for myself, I suppose. But it'd be nice to share with other people your stories. So I started checking into that, and it's like, yeah, that might work. So I got the first one out there, and it's like, hey, cool. So that makes it a little more easy to start trying to get to the other ones too.
Yes.
And it's not that difficult once they've made it better since I've done the first one. It's kind of easier to publish these things now. And so it's not difficult at all on the publishing part.
Yeah, you're right.
So,
yeah, they've made it pretty easy. So where do you get your ideas for your books?
Mostly just comes from stuff in my head, I guess. Sometimes you think you're like, you've seen Star Wars, you've seen Harry Potter, you've seen all these things, and it's like, well, you can't quite do that the way they did it. So some of these things you got to like come up with a little bit different angle. That's kind of why I'm hoping like the swords giving the abilities of these other things is kind of a little bit different than other ways people have had magic or abilities or powers or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes when you're just when you're writing along, it's like, ooh, that would be kind of a good idea to do that way. So that's ideas mostly just come from what I'm thinking up. So
nice. What does your family think of your writing?
They like it, which is good. Yeah. I have the type of family that would tell you if something stunk. So, and they all like it. So I am assuming that it's not horrible. So, cause you kind of, when you're doing your own writing, you think it might be good. You think it might be bad. Both, it's like, yeah, maybe this didn't work, but they liked it. And it's like, oh, okay, cool.
Nice.
Glad you liked it. So, and like I said, they would tell me if it wasn't. So I have the critics right at home that would help me out. So
good.
So they're supportive.
That's good. And you've written how many books? You have 3 published?
I have 3 published, 1 in the works, and then 1 in the back burner. And that was what I planned to do kind of all along, kind of 1 for each sword. Uh-huh. But kind of as the outline thing, as I've gone forward, I've actually pulled the 5th sword into the 4th book here now too. So, so I was kind of going to wait until the 5th book to bring that one around, but I thought, you know what, this might be a good time to bring this character into it. So that they'll be all together by the time the 5th book comes they're kind of all together right now in the middle of the fourth one right now. So
Do you think you'll end on 5?
I don't. Depends on how things go. Um, probably, but there's a character in the third book that I like, that I almost would like to give her own book.
Yeah.
She was 7 years old when she got the sword. She got the third sword. So she was 7 years old, and you could live forever. So she's like a 500-year-old 7-year-old.
Oh my goodness.
She has attitude. Like, if you're 7 years old for your entire, basically, because the sword heals you basically. So if you're not going to grow either, you're not going to age.
Wow.
So she stays at 7, and one of her powers is to grow or to shrink. She can shrink down. Unfortunately, it might be like Ant-Man. I don't know. Hopefully not. But she can grow. So she can grow to really big, and so she can be bigger than everybody if she really wants to. Another one of her powers is super speed, so she can zip around. Just imagine your 7-year-old. If your 7-year-old can zip at like 50 miles an hour, or something. Try to keep up with your 7-year-old that can go that fast,
She sounds fun.
It's kind of, so I almost have a thought that maybe it would be fun, because in her timeline, in her time frame, the swords are not together, so they're kind of meant to be together. And then she's the next one after the people in the books that I have now. So it would be kind of fun to kind of send her to kind of see if she can go around and maybe find the others, which she could, because she knows where they're all at. So, but she's never done that. She decided, I don't, she's never gone looking for the rest of them, even though she could.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
I don't know if there will be more than 5, and I've had thoughts of doing something else too, something totally different. So
Yes, that's cool. So maybe after you finish this series, something brand new will come along.
it might. It depends on how old I am. By the time I get around to finishing these things.
Do you have a favorite book you've written?
Maybe it's probably between 2 and 3. 3, they've gotten better as I've gone along, because I've gotten older, so, and maybe a little smarter or wiser, hopefully a little bit. But because I like the second one, because there's some good things I did in there that I like, but I think the third one is probably even better, so maybe more favorite, because they actually are pulled back in time. They're both the sword. The guy who created the swords is Bosch, so that's where the swords of Bosch comes from. So he created them, and unbeknownst to any of them, he put a little failsafe in that, and if anything ever happened to him in the time stream, that the third sword owners would be pulled back to help save him or whatever if he needed it. So that's the premise of the third book.
Nice.
Is all the third sword holders are pulled back through time, and to try to help save him. So
very cool.
So having the time stream thing was kind of fun.
Yeah. So
that's part of why I like it too.
Nice. So have you ever written a scene that made you sad?
I probably got about 3 of them. Book 1, Bart is the holder of the first sword. He's got the first sword, and there's this big competition off in space, and one of the guys that is actually one of his enemies is also agreed to be a part of this fight, but on Bart's side. He's on Bart's team now, so they're kind of together. And Bart's dad has died in a nuclear accident, power plant accident. And this guy actually, his dad saved everybody else that was in his department and sacrificed himself. So he the guy barely made it out, and he turned into this nuclear glob of flesh, basically, and so he's super strong and everything. And so so it was kind of sad that Bart learned from this guy that what his dad had actually done to help all the people in his thing. So that's one of them. And that's the little character Maeve that we talked about earlier, the 7-year-old. Just her being alone kind of made me a little sad too.
Yeah.
And then third one I can't remember. It's in book 2. So I'm not sure where. Somewhere in book 2.
Awesome.
So
what have you found is the best way to market your books?
That's kind of finding the time to do the marketing is the hard part. I need to do. I know I've like the Nebraska Writers Guild's got great stuff out there to try to help people out, and I need to find the time to use all those resources. Right now, the best I can do is to promote it on Facebook and stuff like that. I like my email signature. I have all the links to all my books in there. That's part of what I do. So I have a little trouble with the marketing part of it. And I tell people about it, and they read it and they like it, and I just kind of need them to tell other people about it too. So
sure. Have you ever made a book free, an ebook?
I did that for the first one for a while, and that worked a little bit. And some of those places that you can advertise those things, they want you to have a certain amount of good ratings on like Amazon and stuff like that. So I need a few more good ratings on Amazon to get hit some of those places. But I did that with the first one for a while. I should do that. That would be another good thing to do. Find the time.
Yeah.
Make the time. That's what I should say.
Right.
I will never find the time, right? Unless
true.
you make the time, you'll never find the time. So
that is true. How do you find names for your characters?
I just think them up. It's just another thing that kind of comes through my mind. And with Baj, where I put the apostrophe in his name. Actually, in the third book here, where they go back to get him, they find out that that's the tradition of this planet. There's two races on this planet, and they all have an apostrophe in their name somewhere.
Nice.
So one of the characters is Sharel. So it's almost like Cheryl, but it's not quite. And I have one of my main characters she will actually get the fourth sword here in this book. Is Erin, just plain Erin, Erin. That's always been one of my favorite names. So I didn't name a kid Erin, so I named a book character Erin instead. So, and I don't know. It just kind of I try to, especially making up these alien names, I tried to think of something that sounded decent with a comma between it somewhere that would kind of. And there's the fifth sword holder will probably be difficult for people to pronounce. I pronounce it Zahia. So, and I just try to. I guess I don't know if it looks like that when you look at it. So
you need a little pronunciation guide in your.
Actually, in the third book, I did that.
I did. Smart.
I did because I knew that there would probably be some. It's like, how do you pronounce these names? So
right.
So I thought, why not? I can do what I want in my book, right? So I just threw a glossary in. So
yes. So are you going to read for us tonight? I
can. I chose actually chapter 1 from book 3. Nice. I do an epilogue and a prologue in these things too. Maybe I don't know if I ever should have done that, but it's kind of the prologue kind of gives something that will happen in the book, or kind of pertains, and the epilogue kind of gives you a teaser for the next one.
Great.
So I chose chapter 1 in book 3 because I thought it's kind of intriguing here. So
good.
You ready for that?
I'm ready. Go.
All right. We'll give it a shot. I'll try not to be too loud. There is some shouting in here. So
okay.
They get a little loud. I'll try not to get too loud. So, all right. So chapter 1, Swords of Baj Timeline. It was with amazing speed that the portly, middle-aged woman, her graying blonde hair flapping in the breeze, rushed down the dusty path lined with 2-foot-high bushes. She hastened toward a small village nestled in a narrow valley between 2 of the largest snow-capped mountains in the area. The air smelled sweet, with the late summer oleander blossoms beginning their annual change from green to bright yellow. which would be followed by the tastiest dark red fruit. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows from the small houses that filled the tiny hamlet. Each dwelling was similar in appearance. Thatched roofs, highlighted by glistening white stone walls reflecting the disappearing sun. Wooden framed windows protruded from the sides of those stone walls, keeping watch on the village. Rustic wooden doors, equipped with a heavy iron ring for a doorknob, were centered in the wall facing the street. All these dwellings were similar to her own residence, which lay beyond the outskirts of the community, a short distance from the main village. Comprised mostly of farming and leisure, life was simple here. Not much else happened in the small settlement. When you weren't working, you were relaxing. She entered the quiet neighborhood, leaving the dusty path for the cobblestone lane. No one was out. All the men would be at the tavern after a long, hard day working in their fields that lined the lower sections of the mountainsides. Everything centered on agriculture here, and harvest was about to commence. The men always gathered in the evenings to release the stress of the day. She sidled up to the big wooden door and hesitated. Then she burst into the room, slamming the door against the side wall. Everyone in the room stopped what they were doing and turned to look at the commotion. She looked around the room. Everything inside was wooden. The rafters, the floors, the tables, each with 4 chairs surrounding it, the bar, the stairs to the balcony, to a balcony, sorry. It was like a rustic log cabin on the inside. "What are you doing in here?" growled a rough, unshaven man behind the bar. He moved down to the end of the bar as if he were going to toss her out the door she just banged open. "You know women folk aren't allowed in here." She ignored the man. Everyone continued to stare, glaring so intently that she could feel the burning sensation rising in her rosy cheeks. She searched the dusty room, trying to find the right person. "Oh, thank the gods, you're still alive." Her voice was soft, yet she spoke clear and strong. She rushed to a small wooden table toward the back of the room, in a corner darker than the rest. At the table sat 3 bald, purple-skinned men in matching violet jumpsuits. "Not many people around here would agree with you on that," said the one in the middle, tipping a small glass to his lips for a drink. "Of course, you do have more reason than most to hope that I'm alive." He set his glass on the table between the 2 others. Let's see. "I understand what it means for you and Baj to be joined," she replied calmly. Sorry, trying to make voices here. I don't know if I can. Trying to make it so you know the difference between.
You're doing great. I love it.
Okay. "If you're alive, then he's alive. And I'm certainly glad for that myself, since the reverse is true." The man picked up his drink again and emptied it in one swallow. "Quarry, we need to find him." She grabbed the empty chair at the table and sat, her eyes pleading with him. Around the room, the other men continued to stare, the disgust in their eyes for this woman invading their space evident. "We? What do you mean, we?" Quarry lifted his glass, indicating he needed a refill. The man behind the bar glared and turned his back, pretending to wipe some glasses clean. So Quarry slammed his glass down, his frustration with the barman evident on his face. The woman leaned in closer and whispered, "You and Baj are joined. You have to find him." "Look, Buan, just because we are joined doesn't mean we like each other or cared about each other. We were in the military. That's how it is with you Gamone and us Corellians. You white-skins think you're superior to us purple-skins." Buan knew all about the symbiotic relationship with the Gamone military. Buan knew all about the symbiotic relationship the Gamone military placed on its soldiers. Who didn't? That didn't mean she approved of the practice. The Corellians had always been viewed as an inferior race, something akin to a subspecies. The Gamone looked down upon them. But the truth was that the Corellians were more agile, more intense, and more intelligent, but the Gamone always seemed to have some special, unexplained power over them. The Gamone conquered the Corellians and created this symbiotic relationship which allowed its soldiers to gain the upper hand in every encounter with whomever they met. It allowed the two to work, think, and act as one, doubling their abilities. It didn't matter to those in power that the connection between the two symbiotes became so strong that the side effects included permanency and the fact that if one symbiote died, so did the other. This relationship caused more ill will between the two races, and even in a tavern like this, the Corellians sat in the worst places and received the worst service, if they were served at all. She bore into him with those desperate eyes of hers. Fine, Corey gave in. He didn't really care if he ever saw Baj again, but when a Gamon looked at a Corellian like that, there was no way to resist. How do you know he's gone? His shop was ransacked. You know he would never leave it in anything but pristine condition. Well, as pristine as a blacksmith shop can be. That is true. Please help me. From the bar came a low grunt that caused the entire room to hesitate. All eyes turned to look at the man who had cleared his throat. His long, white, blonde hair flowed around the tankard he stared into. You forget Baj is real, friends Buon. Buon stood and carefully edged toward the man. You know I can't ask you to put yourself in danger, Kate. Corey pounded the table and roared, But you have no problem asking me to put myself in danger. He clasped his fingers, then put his hands behind his head and tipped his chair back. I don't think I will help after all. Kate tried to spring to his feet, but his weakened leg got in the way. In the process, he kicked his stool, knocking it to the floor with a bang. His cane slowly slid along the wood paneling of the bar until it fell, rattling to the ground. You'll help or I'll... Or you'll what? Corey interrupted, thumping his chair feet to the floor and then standing. You're an old fool. Kill me, and Baj is dead too. He smirked. Besides, you can barely walk on that leg. Kate appeared deep in thought. He was a big man, very capable of defending himself, even with a bad leg. But for him, just standing was a difficult task. He injured his leg in a farming accident long ago, which kept him from enlisting in the military like Baj and becoming joined with the Corellian. He relaxed his muscles. He leaned over, balancing on his good leg, and picked up his stool, replacing it in its previous spot. Baj and I have been friends since childhood. I am going to look for him no matter what anyone else does. It would be easier with your help. Please help me find him. Corey looked astonished. No Gamon ever nicely asked a Corellian to do anything. He nodded. Meet me outside the public square in a half turn of the dial. I have something I need to get before we can go. He took a brown pouch from a pocket in his purple jumpsuit and opened it. He reached in, pulled out some coins, and placed them on the table, then left. Buon and Kate stared after him. They didn't speak for a few awkward moments. Kate reached down for his cane. Then he gently grasped her elbow and prompted her to follow him. We should get you out of here before some of the men in here get their faces permanently stuck in grouch mode. Outside, in the fresh, warm air, Buon breathed deep. It sure smells a lot better out here than in that tavern. How do you stand it in there? That's why the men drink in there. Get enough ale in you, and you don't know how bad it is. Do you really think Corey will help us? Kate's gaze drifted toward the public square, where a rock carved to resemble a cloud hung suspended from a long marble strut, jutting from a stone wall. Water from the cloud gently rained on a grain field sculpted from a granite slab. As droplets hit the slab, mist rose into the air and swirled in the light wind. He agreed a bit too quickly, but if there's one thing about Corey's people, they mean what they say, and they keep their promises. Plus, Baj has always been good to him, better than most Gamon symbionts. I think secretly he likes Baj. And that's the end of chapter 1.
Oh, fantastic. I loved your voices that you did. That's great. And I love the tension and all the stuff that you're creating in your world, and the symbiotic relationship with the two races is super interesting to me. So
something a little different. So
yes, very cool. I loved it.
And it's awesome. kind of strange that, if one of them dies, the other one dies. Just the link is that strong that it actually kills the other one. So
yes,
which is kind of weird, but
I think it's cool.
You lose half your army that way. I think it's like so. But they're fast. They're faster, stronger, and supposedly can get don't get hit as quick or something maybe. So
cool. Well, that sounds fascinating. Thank you so much for coming on the show tonight.
Well, thanks for having me on.
I really enjoyed listening to you read and learning all about your book and what you write. Next week, we will have a break. We're not going to have a show because I'm doing the Writing Gals Conference next week, and it's all virtual, but I will be super busy with it. And so I won't be able to be on this show. But in 2 weeks, we will have Bonnie Lacey on. And so don't forget to click like or subscribe so that you are notified when we have the next show coming on, and join us in 2 weeks. And thank you all for joining us. We'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Bye.